street. I was hit by something last night in my sleep. It's a dead man's party. Who could ask for more? Everybody's coming. Leave your body at the door. Leave your body and soul at the door. Watch out, watch out. It's only me. It's only me. Don't be afraid of what you can't see. Yeah, yeah. It's a dead man's body. 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 It's a dead man's body.
Hello, my pack, my tribe. Welcome to Howling After Dark. Okay, so what we're talking about tonight, I will warn you now. It's kind of a tough subject. And once I tell you what it is and we go into it, you might even ask yourself, or you might ask the question, how does this pertain to the paranormal? Well, you're not going to have to worry, because I'm going to spell it all out, and I think you'll see my point. Whether or not you actually agree with me is another story, and that's entirely up to you. But I think most people will agree with what I'm about to talk about and my ideas about it. So, normally, like most of my shows, they're kind of, if not upbeat, at least, not sad. Whereas this episode, if you will, this edition of Howling After Dark, which is actually the first Howling After Dark in a while, because I've been doing the other show, Ghost Wolf Live, which is kind of the same thing, but the idea for that is to have it live and be like a live investigation, so the listeners are included into that. But anyways, I digress. So part of the reason why this is going to be kind of a sad show, and this is going to lead into to tonight's topic, and it is paranormal related, so don't worry. A couple weeks ago, let me give you some backstory here. There's always been 3 dogs in this house. Nacho, who with any luck, the world is going to become very familiar with, because I'm actually intending to write a book about him and me and his journey, my journey, and how we got together, and it's going to be a book about redemption. But that's not tonight's topic. And I've had Sunny, my little one, who she's such a puppy. And then my middle child, if you will, Voodoo Marie, aka Baby Girl. And those, for the longest time, for a couple of years now, have been the three dogs in my house. In their house, in our home. Well, almost a year ago, no, actually, I think it's been just about a year. Baby girl started to have really horrible seizures. At least a few of them were what you might qualify as grand mal seizures, which are the roughest and usually the most prolonged seizures that you can have, whether you be mammal, as a dog or cat or what have you, or a human. And I don't know if you, my listeners, have had any experience with seizures, but when they're in the throes of it, when you have this life that you're responsible for, that is so sweet, it's so loving, and so innocent, and it's in the grips of a seizure like that, you feel completely powerless to do anything about it. And then when they come to and they don't recognize you, in fact they're afraid of you, it's heartbreaking. And this had been going on for just about a year. Well, I guess it's been like 2-3 weeks now. It was on, I want to say it was on the 26th well, it was a Friday. It was like, I think it was like the last Friday of the month, last month. Baby girl passed away. She had a seizure, and her brain just quit. It shut down. And I miss her terribly. I miss her every day. And to kind of explain how this affects me. Um, I'm not like normal people, and I've never shied away from that fact. I'm very open about it. I talk publicly about it. The way I view the world is different. Um, there are people that for sure uh, I love very much, and there are people that I don't. But when it comes to grieving the loss of people, like when my grandfather died, I didn't cry. You know, and I'm open to crying. You know, I'm a real man. I'm okay with feeling whatever you've got to feel. You know, um, but I'm just not wired that way when it comes to people, humans. I mean, I feel it, you know. But when I lost baby girl, it was like losing my child. And I know there's probably parents that have grieved the loss of their children that are thinking, bullshit. And normally they would probably be right in that assumption, but the difference is like I said, I'm not wired like normal people. Um, I wept like a baby the day that my baby girl passed away. I've lost friends, and I've lost family members, and whether people think it's right or wrong, or and cast judgments about that, go ahead. I just say that I'm not wired like they are, and that's fine. But and I felt sad, and I felt sad every time those people died. But not like I did with baby girl. I've always felt it more with animals in general, and I think it's okay, you know. But people are free to judge however they want, I guess. But when she passed away, I wept. I remember my boss, very sweet lady, drove over to my house from our work, and was going to give us a ride so that the vet could take a look at her and see what was going on. she attempted to, perform CPR for at least a good couple minutes. It was just too late. She was already gone. And I remember she went ahead and took her body to work so that they could have her cremated. And I was off that day, so I went back into my house, and my other two dogs were right there waiting for me. And I just collapsed, and cried like I haven't cried like that for years and years. But life lately hasn't been, how shall we say, very nice to me. Um, it seems like everything that can go wrong kind of has. Um, I lost my baby girl. Um, I'm dealing with this sadness, this melancholy, melancholy, I meant to say, this, dare I say, depression. And it's not all because of baby girl, but that was definitely the catalyst there. So, I got that going on, and then, things going on at work that aren't good. I'm basically, I feel as if I'm being overlooked, for starters, and then compounding that is the fact that, like, basically everything I know, everything that I brought to the table from the beginning, all the good stuff with these animals that I've managed to do is being kind of discounted, and I'm basically getting told in no uncertain terms that everything I've done to make things better for them is wrong. And so that's not helping matters anyways. So I'm dealing with like this depression over all of it, and I'm not blaming anybody. I don't blame one of a kind. I don't blame my work. I don't blame the people at my work. I don't blame my boss. I don't blame anybody. It is what it is. Do I wish things turned out differently? Yeah, absolutely. But I think I would feel the way I'm feeling regardless. Um, it might just have been at a different time, is all. Um, but here's where this all plays into the paranormal. My roommate Josh and I have been talking about the possibility of him joining my team, Ghost Wolf Paranormal. And he's had paranormal experiences, but he hasn't had a lot, I would say, of experience with paranormal investigation. And so he soaks up all that information pretty well. And I was telling him about the Spirit Box app, which I've not necessarily advertised, but I talk about a lot on my show. I'm a big advocate for Big Beard Studios and all the apps that they do that are absolutely fantastic, in part because Danny, the owner of said company, Big Beard Studios, uses those apps himself to ghost hunt. So you know they're legit, which cannot be said for every, ghost hunting app out there. But I digress. So I was showing him the Spirit Box app, how it works, and he's blown away, by it, and he wanted to kind of do like I guess you could call it a mini investigation right there in his room. But due to this sadness, this depression, whatever you want to call it, creeping into my heart yet again, because of everything going on, and I can't get it out of my head. It's like one of those things that's got to run its course, and I just have to suffer in the meantime. But due to the way I was feeling, I had to excuse myself from that situation. And this is a topic that I brought up recently with Josh due to certain things he's going through and everything. So here it is. This is tonight's topic. I'm a big advocate, a big believer in the paranormal and in paranormal investigation, but I also believe that it is not something that should be taken lightly. It is not a fucking hobby, and it annoys me greatly when people call paranormal investigation a hobby. It is not a fucking hobby. It is a calling, and either you're supposed to do it or you're not. Plain and simple. But because of that outlook, the way I see it, there are certain rules that should be followed. And a part of that is taking accountability for yourself. And part of that is like not using, well, I don't use drugs anyways, but at least not anymore. I haven't for about 30 years, but you can't use drugs, or alcohol, and the reason why isn't necessarily just because it probably shouldn't be doing that in the first place. It's also because that when you use any substance like that can impair your ability to process information, um, it can leave you very open to things like possession or spiritual manipulation. Um, it makes you too much of an open door, if you will. Um, and I've seen that before. I've actually had to perform uh, essentially exorcisms before due to the stuff I'm talking about, you know. But a part of that also is emotional. Um, when you're depressed or sad, like really sad, or when you're angry, and I'm not talking about the angry that can happen in the moment during an investigation. I'm talking about you're already angry before you even start. That kind of angry can leave you just as open. So because of that, you know, I did the responsible thing in that moment, and I kind of excused myself. But then I realized, you know, that maybe not everybody knows to do that. And I was already considering doing Howling After Dark again. And I wanted to do it tonight. And it seemed like the perfect opportunity to talk about it. You know, because whatever, and it's primarily negative emotions. Which, if you really look at it, like drugs and alcohol, really are coming from a negative place in general. So you're open to that. You're open to primarily negative spirits at that point. Same thing with negative emotions, because it's all kind of relative, you know. And it doesn't mean that the spirits that would manipulate you or possess you are necessarily evil. It could be like, in my case, for example, I felt that depression all over the, you know, the stuff I already talked about. That could have left me open to spirits that experienced those same emotions, and maybe even for similar reasons, and been drawn to that, and so they possess you because, you know, they relate so strongly to it. That's happened before, in my estimation, in my experience. Which, kind of sideline it for a second, brings up the point that not every possession is by an evil spirit. Okay, in fact, what most people refer to as negative or evil spirits, in fact, either aren't, uh, and they're just being mislabeled, if you will, um, out of uh, ignorance, or they are, negative or evil. But to reiterate a point I've made before on the show, those negative, evil spirits that would do such a thing are actually incredibly rare. Um, in almost every single case, and if you don't believe me, you can even look through the records about it that are public from like Catholic priests performing exorcisms. In almost every single case, at least every single case I've ever heard of or experienced, um, when they are possessed by an evil negative spirit, it's because they were already experiencing some kind of emotional problem, uh, some kind of emotional trauma, maybe like depression, anger, some kind of negative emotion was at the forefront in that person's life when they got possessed. Now, I'm not trying to, make anyone feel bad, particularly people that are dealing with depression, dealing with emotional issues. I'm not trying to beat down drug addicts or alcoholics or whatever, um, in part because I am a recovering addict myself. Um, as of this year, I'm 30 years clean. Thankfully. Um, and for those out there that might be struggling with those issues, by the way, um, I don't know if this will make you feel better or not, but there are days that I still struggle with it. The only thing is I've developed, or always kind of had one, but I developed an iron will, and I will never be that guy again. It's that simple. Um, well, not simple, but you get my point. There are times when, like since baby girl passed away, there are times that I'm fine. I mean, I'm still, in my core, I'm sad that she's gone. But then it also feels like she's not really gone because, well, she isn't. I've actually seen her um, in my house and heard her and stuff. So she's here. Even though she passed away, she's here. Um, but it doesn't make the sadness any less real. know, and there was a moment, you know, just a moment, and I'm so grateful I didn't do it, but there was a moment when I was tempted to go looking for my drug of choice, you know, which was opium, by the way. And no, I don't mean opiates. I don't mean heroin. I mean opium, like the tar ball that you see guys smoking in like movies and like the Chinese opium dens, whatever, you know, from like the 1800s or whatever. That stuff, which there aren't a lot of people that still do it, but there are people that still do it. That's all I'm going to say about it. And unfortunately, for a little while, I was one of those people. And being in that kind of emotional state is not the best time to go ghost hunting, to do a paranormal investigation, because you're so open to anything at that point. You know, you have to be in the right frame of mind. You have to be off drugs, off alcohol. Like, I don't care if you drink, okay? But you should never be under the influence during an investigation, period. That's just asking for it. That's what my experience tells me. So, do me a favor, do yourself a favor, do the people around you a favor. If you go ghost hunting, if you do a paranormal investigation, even as a lark, do not do it while you're drinking or doing drugs of any kind. Don't do it if you feel sad or depressed or angry or any kind of negative emotion. Don't do it. Because the thing about it is, if you are not responsible enough to not do an investigation while you're in that state, you shouldn't be investigating anyways. Because, look, it's like this. You have to think not only about your own self, your own well-being, you have to think about the well-being of the people around you too. You know, the people that are with you during the investigation, the people that are in your life, how it might affect them if you're being possessed or manipulated by something. You have to think about this stuff, or at least you should. So, that's the lesson for tonight. Don't ever do a paranormal investigation, a ghost hunt, whatever you want to call it, if you're in a fragile state. If you're compromised in any way, whether it be emotional or drugs and alcohol or whatever it is, you probably shouldn't be investigating at that time. Because possessions are real. I know they're not always evil, but still, it's not good. Because whether that spirit intends you harm or not, if it's possessing you, it's still an uninvited guest. So that's the topic for tonight, folks. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Tune in next time. Until then, my pack, my tribe, peace out.
All dressed up with nowhere to go. Walking with the dead man over my shoulder. All dressed up with nowhere to go. Walking with the dead man, the dead man.